Kind of just makes me think about because I have a friend that he's not really into fighting games. Like he'll play, like he knows about some stuff. He'll watch streams and whatnot. A lot of times he's quick to talk about, man, that looks broken, man, that looks OP, and it's like I find myself kind of like downplaying stuff and kind of talking down, and I'm just like, no, I mean it's okay, like I'm okay with it. It's and trying to bring him off the cliff or whatever, and just like no, like it's perfectly fine. Like what's going on in the game? It's just it's something I got to learn to deal with.
Right. That's huge. I feel like being able to say like, okay, this is something I need to learn how to deal with is like huge. That's massive because it brings responsibility into your court, and then when you have that responsibility and you figure it out and you counter those things, that is your hard work just playing out right in front of you.
Hello, and welcome to the Absolute Guard podcast.
Yes, welcome. This is episode 45. My name is Benny, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host John, who is now a Honda main. Right, John?
I have exactly one day in as Honda, and I already feel like I've mastered the character. No, actually, I took him on ranked after we played. So Benny taught me the ropes of Honda for one morning, and then we played for a little bit, and then I got arrogant and tried to go on ranked, and I didn't know what to do in like 3/4 of the matchups because headbutt just didn't work, and I was like, oh, I guess there's more to this character than I thought. So I've been humbled.
Yeah. I feel in some ways it's kind of a double-edged sword too, right? Because he's one of the problematic characters for a lot of people. Like
Mhm.
that's one of those matchups where like in Street Fighter 4, Sagat was like one of the best characters in the game, right? In vanilla Street Fighter 4. And a
Yeah.
lot of people didn't want to play that matchup. But as a Honda main back in that game, like I was comfortable in that matchup because I played so many times against that character. So it might be kind of a situation like that where people are just, oh, another Honda. Porter John comes on the screen and they're just like, I know how to deal with this.
And that's definitely how I played. I
Yeah.
I will say though, as somebody we did get to play some matches together, and as somebody that was playing Honda this time against somebody not playing Honda, decades of trauma being resolved right then and there. All that Street Fighter 4 headbutt that I had to eat, just all the payback was there, and it felt so cathartic.
Yeah, I think more of your trauma is probably from Mr. SNK than me though, because I'm pretty sure you handed me my ass more than I did you in four. So
I didn't win more often than you headbutted me though. That's for sure.
yeah, I can say that. Yeah.
All right. So, one of the things that we've been trying to do lately is have conversations with folks outside of the Street Fighter scene. And one of the people that I've known throughout the years and played Street Fighter 4 with, and have had the opportunity to work with them at Contender and on the Strive side and the Street Fighter 5 side is AZ Show. So we wanted to bring him on today.
Yeah.
Welcome, Show.
Hey, thanks a lot. Really appreciate being here. I'm glad that we were able to find a good opportunity to, have me on here because I've known that you guys have been doing this, and I'm really glad that this has been something ongoing, that you keep on having all these different guests from different communities and stuff like that. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Cheers. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, we appreciate it, man. It's just, I mean, at first, like when we started doing this, like it became a thing where like we wanted to talk to a lot of people, and then it was just like eventually we're gonna run out of people to talk to, so we try to like very, do various different things, whether it was like talking about Street Fighter 6 beta and stuff like that, or current events, and then now we're kind of like getting into our groove back again, like talking to people that we haven't talked to at all, that haven't been on the show yet. So
Yeah. I think I think that, like, if I recall correctly, like Strive and Street Fighter V were kind of in tandem with each other for a while, and at Contender, and it was always really cool to kind of see some of the crossover from the anime scene. I've seen people play both Strive and Five and entered in both those tournaments before, and there's a lot of good opportunities for cross pollination between those scenes.
Yeah, I agree. And another interesting thing has been I've seen not only crossover from Street Fighter, but also Smash Brothers, which I really didn't expect.
Yeah.
As Strive was kind of gaining in popularity, there were a lot of people that were involved, like really good players that were involved with Smash Brothers that, and they wanted to give this genre a shot, and they ended up, settling on starting with Strive, largely, good net code and stuff like that.
Cool.
Nice.
Well, I started talking about Strive because we've got footage of your stream on our screen here as well, and you are one of the top players in Arizona for Strive, but you also have a pretty storied history for in the Arizona fighting game community, and so we kind of wanted to reach back in time and tell some stories from that old era and see how that ultimately brings us to today and in this unique world we live in today in post-COVID, post-pandemic.
Yeah. So, I was gonna say, well, typically when we get somebody new on the show, we want to know the origin of your gamer tag. Like, so where does show come from? Because I'm, assuming we know everybody knows where the AZ comes from, or at least for your Twitch name.
Yeah.
Where did show origin from?
So that's actually really simple. There's a prolific JRPG that was on the Nintendo DS named The World Ends With You. And I played it when I was younger, and there's a character, one of the main villains, his name is Sho Minamimoto. And that was, I just love that character so much. And it was not only that I really like that character, but also that I feel like Sho is just there's a very short, tag that's not like, it's not hard to remember, it's not hard to pronounce. It's just kind of very, very simple to have in mind, and also you don't feel embarrassed saying it out loud.
Yep.
But yeah, so a lot of it is for the sake of readability, as well as just I love that character, so that's where my name's from.
Nice.
It's also a very common tag, so that's where the AZ comes from. Obviously, you guys know it's because I live in Arizona, but the main reason why I've decided to tack that on there was because I didn't want to be confused with any other shows.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, yeah, I mean, a lot of people got the qualifier Saber AZ. I've got the AK in my name, so yeah, definitely understand that.
Very cool. So another question we typically ask new guests on the show: when did you get started playing fighting games?
Okay, that was a long time ago. And it's funny because I'm part of an era of fighting game players where back when I started, it was like a derogatory term. The tag for these people was I started playing fighting games largely because I got tired of team-based competitive games. I've been wanting to play competitive games like ever since I was able to play them. And one of the most recent game that I was really into, this is bizarre, but it was Guitar Hero. And I was good at it. I won like every tournament I entered.
Wow.
And so when there was a new set of games that came out, and they were all based on having a full band. You had the drums, the vocals, and the two guitars. And I didn't have that many people that were like really serious about it that wanted to do that. So it became very difficult for me to enter tournaments. And I had always liked fighting games. Like I had always liked Street Fighter and Guilty Gear and stuff, but I was never like really, really into them. And so it came about as a very self-centric competitive sport. And the first game I took seriously was the Capcom JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Fighter, Heritage for the Future.
The one
Nice.
with the with Pet Shop in it, right?
Yeah,
Everyone
yeah,
always talks
yeah,
about. Yeah, okay.
yeah. The online spaces that I was in were all about GGPO and 2D Fighter, and jeez, it was called 2D Fighter back then. Now it's Fightcade, and GGPO doesn't even exist anymore, as far as I know. It basically integrated with Fightcade,
Mhm.
and so there was that, and then Street Fighter 4 came out, and then that was like the big, oh 09, the 09er. I was an 09er.
Yeah, fellow Niner.
Yep, that's me too.
Yeah, so it was that was kind of like my jump off point. I ended up getting my hands on a TE, of Mad Catz TE, because I was playing on a DualShock 2 back then.
Yep.
And I went to a tournament that was run on PS3s, and
Oh.
I couldn't use it. So I was so annoyed because the buttons, the R2 and L2, hang down a little lower on that controller, and I
Oh.
flicked it by accident and got a roundhouse, and I died for it. And so I was like, I'm never going back to having to deal with like a proprietary pad. So just arcade stick all the way after that.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's almost like the ubiquity of the arcade stick was the big selling point for you then.
Yes. I also just love how it looks. I think it looks amazing.
I think you're the first guest we've ever talked to that has had like a rhythm game, a competitive rhythm game background, and using that as like the gateway to competitive FGC. Does like how a lot of players take real pride in their arcade sticks, and they customize them, and it's a form of expression in a way.
Right.
Does that same kind of thing happen with like competitive Guitar Hero? Like, did people like mod their sticks or mod their guitar
Guitars?
controllers or anything like that?
That honestly, that was not really present because a lot of people would just use they would generally have the instruments there. And
Mm.
Oh,
to
okay.
be fair, there was not a huge scene for it. It was more like I would be like at an anime convention or something, and they would have a tournament there and stuff
I
like
see.
that.
Okay.
It was not there was not like this is the Guitar Hero locals type thing.
Fair enough.
We didn't have that.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's like when you talk about the anime conventions. That's like one of those things. Like if you're walking somewhere with like your parents or something, they're just like, "Oh, you play that game? You should go play." Like,
Yeah.
hey, like, "Well, shut up! Like, leave me alone."
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Okay, so Street Fighter 4 comes out, and you pick that game up, and I'm hearing you like it.
So I didn't know that there even was really like a scene for it in where I lived. That was back I lived in Connecticut at the time.
Okay.
Which very small state. I lived in like a small town, and nobody else gave a damn about Street Fighter.
Yeah.
But basically I found out that, because of where it is, we would get players from Spooky's group. They would all come down to locals. The New Jersey group, you had people like Marlon Pie and some other players from that area. And so it was really cool because basically I found out that there was this tournament taking place in this guy's basement, which is that's green flag, wonderful. And so there was actually it was a play and trade specifically, that my first local was at a play and trade, and it was really cool because I was like, oh, I've seen all these people play on streams, all these like amazing players, and like I'll finally get to like actually play with them and stuff like that. Now I don't want to get too much into it, and I don't want to throw too much under the bus, but I will say that I got matched against DSP and I killed him 2-0. It was not close.
Former Evo champ DSP, or Evo top 8 placer, I should
It's
say.
funny
Sorry.
because I'm seeing clips of him popping up again, and it's like I feel like if there's a Street Fighter game comes out, you're gonna hear about him somehow, even if that's not your. That's funny.
Yeah, because that was probably at the height of his popularity, I think.
Right.
like right when Street Fighter 4 released. So
Yeah, and like into Super because yeah, he was playing Hakan and that was not a good decision. But moving on. Oh, I'll backtrack a little bit. I played Rose,
Mhm.
and that was because I love JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which you might have figured out because that was
yes,
the first
yeah,
fighting
yeah.
game I played.
Lisa,
I was
Lisa.
actually reading part 2 for the first time, and this character, I don't know if you guys know, Rose is literally a character from JoJo's. Like she's 100% from JoJo's.
Huh.
She fights with a scarf, like not even not like slightly like her, like basically exactly the same. Guile too.
Yeah.
I think they refer to those as homages, right?
It goes a little bit beyond that. It's heavily inspired.
Okay, fair enough. That's awesome.
Scarf. I remember people calling that the ShamWow.
Yes, the ShamWow. That's right.
Yep.
Those classic, the Vince Offer ads, the slap chop and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You're gonna love my nuts.
Classic. So classic.
Oh man.
So Rose was it sounds like how long did you stick with Rose, or did you ever end up switching away from her?
No, I played that character 100% of the time.
Wow. That's actually pretty rare for
and
Street Fighter 4.
It was really surprising because when Super came out and they showed the Soul Satellite, I was kind of whatever on it, like because when they showed it off, they had like trailers. I don't know if you guys remember, they had trailers for every new Ultra to show off how it works.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody had all these cool cutscenes for their new Ultra, and Rose, she activates and then walks forward, and then the other character dies, and I'm like, that's it. Like, there's no cool
I do remember that.
Yeah. And then she came out, and that's actually what you do. You activate, you walk forward, and they die. And I'm like, wait, this is awesome.
It like another thing is that trailer didn't show off like how invulnerable it was on startup either, so it could be used as a wake up option.
Yeah,
and then like it's just an instant like, hey, you were attacking, now I'm attacking. Like
right. It was very, especially like in that game, a lot of people, there were a lot of like setups to try and do like pseudo unblockables and stuff like that on wake up, and that just did not work anymore. That was not an option.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
She had that one move where she kind of like went diagonally over you, right? And people would do that.
Yes, to create different bad situations for them. But yeah, so fast forwarding a little bit, I moved to Arizona to live with a girl that I was dating at the time. And the first thing I wanted to do was find out where's the FGC out here? What are they doing? And I had heard of, they were called Team Hazmat at the time. They were hosted out of that guy, the Haz's house.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew about the, excuse me, the Marvel scene, because I mean, it's hard not to hear about the Marvel scene at the time. There were just a lot of really, really powerful players. And I was playing KOF 13 at the time. That was the main game that I was really into.
Right.
And there was not like a huge scene for it, but it was just so cool to have a place, to go and be in these tournaments, have all these competitive players and stuff, obviously.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's where I first ran into you there. Like, I don't know if we ever really talked then. Maybe I don't even know if we even played any matches if you were we were playing Street Fighter 4 at the time. But that's where I remember seeing you from. And yeah, KOF. And honestly, I thought you were probably in the scene longer than that, or in the local scene, but I guess not.
No. So now I say KOF. I was definitely trying to. That was still like pretty early in my like career quotation, and I was like trying to play every game, And there were moments where I was playing KOF, Street Fighter 4, and Marvel as well, but I was never very good at Marvel. It was just because it had a lot of characters that I liked in it.
I remember that time period. It was like right when between Vanilla Marvel and Ultimate Marvel. That's like when the KOF 13 dropped, I think. I don't remember if KOF 13 dropped before Marvel or not, but like that was around when our scenes were coalesced pretty closely with each other.
Yeah.
Or co-located rather.
Yeah.
I remember actually it was Armando used to actually host at his place in Tempe, and there was a KOF 13 set up there, and I remember seeing you there while I was playing Marvel, and every now and then we would bust out 4 as well. It was like those were the 3 big games at the time,
Right.
So that was pretty cool. Good time.
Yeah. Simpler times.
Yeah.
But I guess to fast forward a little bit further, there was Street Fighter V came out, and I was like kind of on the fence about it. It was honestly the big problem with that game when I was trying to play it was that my computer was not reading my arcade stick properly.
Yeah.
And so it became like a huge chore to like play at all.
Yep.
And
that was a big issue at launch for 5 for sure.
Right. And I was even more annoyed because I had gotten a TE2 for it. So I have this arcade stick that has this giant picture of Ryu on it. And he's crossing his arms, and there's a 5, and it says "Rise Up," and I'm like, I got the Street Fighter V arcade stick, and it doesn't work on Street Fighter V.
I remember that being that was a pretty sore spot for people.
Right.
And that stick in particular also just ended up being one of the most inferior sticks that Mad Catz released. Which is, from our perspective, it's like, hey, they released the TE1, which was like arguably the best consumer stick ever created, and now
the
TE
it was very impressive. Obviously, before playing fighting games, I was not informed about arcade sticks. But seeing that people would have to solder things to change buttons out and stuff like that was just like, wow, you had to do so much more work back then.
Yeah, before that, yeah, exactly.
Yep.
I wanted to rewind for a sec, actually, because I think Exerd came out before 5, and I was curious about, were you exposed to Guilty Gear Exerd at all, or did you play it at all?
Yeah, so Guilty Gear Xrd came out, and I'm somebody that I always loved like the aesthetic and the music and stuff of Guilty Gear, but I was never very good at it. And when Xrd came out, I was playing Ino, which was a character that was very far outside of like what I normally do in fighting games, which is I usually pick a character that has like really, really commanding normals, and then is otherwise like pretty simplistic, and that character is like the complete opposite of that.
Yeah, very technical character.
So I liked the game, but I was not like playing it all that much, and I didn't really get much into Xrd until Revelator came out with Raven, which that's kind of where I got my real breakout, and I really felt driven to try and improve in a lot of ways.
Okay, so Ino was your first character in Guilty Gear?
Mm-hmm.
Was that any ties to like the Guitar Hero thing at all, or no?
That's a good question. But actually, I really liked her, and I liked Biken when I was like first looking at Guilty Gear, and in Plus R, or I don't even know if it was Plus R back then, but in Accent Core, Ino was like extremely inaccessible. That character is incredibly hard. So I was like, okay, this is my chance to try and make her work. Biken wasn't in the game at that time, so she was not an option.
Okay. I vaguely recall, because I picked up Xrd for a little bit, and I remember, I think we played once, and I got demolished by you like immediately. Because I didn't really know how Ino worked, and I was like, oh, everything hits high.
Yeah, it's a million overheads. Yes.
That was a good time. Very cool. So the breakout happened with Raven then, right?
Yes.
So what was that DLC character dropped, and like what drew you to Raven?
So actually, he wasn't technically a DLC character. Raven was part of the expansion game Xrd Revelator, or as
Okay,
some
my
might
bad.
call Raven later. And he was accessible if you completed the story mode, or if you dropped like uh it was like some very small amount, like a couple dollars or something.
Oh, okay.
So
Story mode unlocks. What
yeah,
are
so
those?
back then it was weird because it was like not technically DLC because it was a new game that you had to buy.
Right.
Um,
Mm.
and what drew me to him is when I messed around in lots of fighting games. I played Darkstalkers a little bit, and there's a character named Jeddah,
Mm.
and I felt like their aesthetics were very similar. Um, he's got this kind of like lingering projectile, these very very commanding normals, and his aesthetic is just very it's very moody, and I like it because it's also at odds with his attitude in the game. He's like a very goofy character.
Oh, he's a goofy character?
His
Oh,
like
wow.
attitude in the game is kind of like at odds with the like very somber backstory that has to do with him, and I think that's really cool.
Okay.
Happy Chaos is like similar, I think.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
But it's so he also was extremely strong. When he first came out, he was a ridiculously powerful character. And that turned into kind of a like, okay, am I actually like decent at this game, or am I just winning because this character's really strong type thing?
Sure.
And that mentality, that mindset, that thought process is something that I feel like a lot of players run into eventually. If they play enough fighting games, they're going to run into, is my character strong enough to win? Am I good enough to win? Is my character just carrying me? That sort of thing. And I was wondering that for the entire time that I played, and then there was a point where they nerfed him. They updated the game, and they made the things he had that were very commanding were not quite as much.
Okay.
And a huge amount of people that played him dropped him completely and just moved on and played other characters. But I love playing him, so I was still in there, and I was actually winning more because my drive to like learn how to be really good with him was not based on how strong he was, but just on being able to play the character. And
Yeah.
that is, you guys know this, but I want to say that is what will always trump,
Yeah.
whether or not the character's strong, is your willingness to kind of bend yourself around what that character does.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you can overcome bad matchups like if you know the matchup better, right? Like somebody that's just switched to top character or whatever for this version, like, if you know your character inside and out and you're like, yeah, I know how to deal with the stuff that's coming at me, then yeah, you can overcome that, pretty easily sometimes.
Yeah.
I think a lot of what also contributes to that, it's imposter syndrome in a way, right? Is that
Mhm.
a lot of times when the top tier character is like really good, they become the villain of the scene as well, and
Yes.
people are
Yeah.
very quick to discredit any kind of accomplishments that you have with that character.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's
so
like I was saying earlier, like Honda's, or I'm sorry, John's day one Honda. He was giving me the work yesterday, and I was just like, "Oh, this is what this is like, huh?" Like, all right.
Yeah, and I'm facing that now, especially because obviously I play this character who's very strong.
Yeah. So did you feel some catharsis then when they nerfed Raven and you could come back and be like, "Hey guys, see how good I actually am."
Uh, that's an understatement. It's a wonderful feeling to feel like, okay, I actually just really am into this, and I want to do this, and I want to show people that this character can do all this cool stuff.
Yeah. I I definitely felt that way with Zero and Marvel 3 as well. Like it
Mhm.
was, except they never nerfed him actually, so I didn't never have to.
You never had to
come to
answer
terms
for
with
your
it.
crimes.
Yeah, basically. So maybe it's
Yeah.
not the same.
Yeah, I mean, there's always that school of thought, especially like in the competitive scene, right? It's just like, are you gonna switch to a better character, or or stick with the one that you've been using if they get nerfed? And I've John was talking about people not switching characters in four, and I was just like, I played Honda pretty much all the way through,
Yeah.
through
Oh
all
yeah,
the
my bad.
nerfs, and it was terrible. Like there was literally only like one tournament in Arizona where I played Ryu against Velociraptor's Gokid because I was just like, well, this matchup for Honda is just terrible. Let me play Ryu. And my Ryu is nothing, so I got washed. And I was just like, yeah, I'm never doing that again. But
No way. Yeah.
it's just one of those things. Like you get attached to a character, and you get people know you for that character, and I didn't really have a. It was in some ways it was kind of just like my identity of like who I was at the time.
Hmm. Now I also wanted to say that like it's very interesting, like because you face this with like in general when you play fighting games, some of the first things that you interact with are like tier lists and stuff like that.
Yep.
And it's extremely difficult to profess to people that that is like such a small section of what the game actually is when you're playing it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I just remembered. The I remembered it and then I forgot. That's incredible.
Well, regarding the tier list, like it's funny you bring that up because Street Fighter 6 has just come out. It's what 3-4 weeks in, and
Yeah,
tier lists are all over the place on Twitter, and people are discussing this and that, and I'm like, the game's been out for 3 weeks. Like, yeah, we know certain characters have better tools than others, but I mean, isn't it a little early to even be worrying about this kind of stuff? And
yeah.
it's not applicable to I'd say the majority of the players. Like you get to the top end, yeah, sure. That's where things really start to kind of stand out.
Hmm. Okay, I remembered now. I'm sorry. I was going to say that something interesting about Xrd, and I feel like this is not always the case in fighting games, is that it really rewarded your loyalty quotation mark,
Hmm.
the familiarity with characters and their mechanics, because the mechanics in that game are so crazy across the cast that
Mhm.
familiarity with that and how to deal with certain things is way more important than how powerful a character is. And a lot of players, I'd say even like most notably like GC Yoshi, his strength as a player and his familiarity with Bedman as a character who is not considered very good, um,
Mhm.
has brought him a lot of success just based on that his familiarity and sticking with that character.
That's something that I've always heard about Guilty Gear as a whole is that you know the matchups are still relevant on defense, but on offense, like everybody's busted, so it's fun.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I
definitely
um
true.
I so okay, so Raven gets nerfed, but you still find success regardless of that. And so where does that leave you in your Xrd career? Like, did you end up placing in any high in any notable tournaments or winning
Um,
locals or anything like that?
Honestly, I did win a few local events, largely ones
Nice.
where Justin didn't show up. Our player Justin Dijixel, he's a very very strong jam player. Was our representative in there was a Red Bull like qualifier event,
Mhm.
and he was the person that went to I want to say it was in New York where they like assembled all these different players that had won these events to but
Best jam in
besides
the
the point.
country, basically, right?
Uh, uh, I can't say that because of Doran. Doran was an extremely strong jam player as well.
Ah, fair enough.
But one of the strongest for sure. And I actually never got out of pools in that game.
Oh, wow. Okay.
In majors, there was I always found a way to find defeat. So that's kind of like it is what it is type situation.
Hey, I was there too,
I
man.
Yeah,
Street
yeah.
Fighter 4, I never got out of pools. It wasn't until Street Fighter 5 that I got out of pools, and I was just like, I just started this game.
Yeah, yeah. But regardless, I still like feel like a lot of my understanding of like how to have like a good mentality about playing in tournaments is based on the time I spent with Xrd. Because Justin was somebody that he was very willing to be helpful,
Mhm.
and also very willing to like beat the hell out of me for 50 matches straight.
So Exerd basically kind of taught you how to be a competitor in the fighting game community, and then I'm guessing blossoming from there.
Yeah, my time with Strive has been a lot different in that I feel like because of the, I'll say, like, perceived accessibility of the game, it's
Mm,
there's a lot of people that are playing it, and so many of them are just very very strong players, and that's not we didn't have that kind of like level of competition with Xrd, which is regrettable, but the game also demanded a lot from the player, especially for some of the more difficult characters,
mm,
um, and so the level of competition was like what I've always wanted for Guilty Gear, because it was something that was present in other games, like obviously with Street Fighter Five, there were huge numbers of people playing it just based on we want to win Capcom Cup, or we want to beat Punk or whoever the good top player was at the time.
Sure, yeah.
yeah.
And
But
so
Strive kind of signaled like this change where a lot of crossover happened. Like usually you'd hear about crossover into Street Fighter, like from anime scenes, from Mortal Kombat, etc. But then when Strive came out, like every scene picked that up. Like Street Fighter players, anime players, of course, like Smash players picked it up. Dragon Ball players, Marvel players, like everybody, I think, picked the Strive up when it came out, because it was I don't know. I was taken by that game for a good couple of months when it first came out. I still really enjoy watching it.
So that game is like such a it was like a surgical strike in terms of like the timing and also the things that were available within it, because I feel like there's all these different groups of people playing fighting games that are suffering in some way or another. You had to suffer through the net code, or maybe a game was inaccessible, it wasn't on a platform that was readily available. Like, I imagine Marvel 3 was very difficult to actually get. Like, it wasn't on PC for a long time, so you had to
Mm,
have these last generation consoles to be able to even play it.
Yep.
um,
yeah.
and the thing about Strive was, I just think that it was like a perfect storm. Just it checked all the boxes that people wanted within a game, that they were able to access it. And honestly, it's also just a beautiful game. So it had a lot to look at, it had a lot to do, and it also, I would say, it had like a fairly um, impressive, I guess impressive is a word for it. I want to say like the opposite of lackluster, because the
Yeah.
the the release for it was just dazzling for everybody, I feel like, even if they didn't stick with it.
Yep. I think that like Street Fighter often like sets the bar for the game at each console, or for the genre each console generation, but then Guilty Gear always closes it out. And
That's
like
interesting.
When Exerd closed out the PS3 and Xbox era, like, and our first interaction with like the cell shading and stuff like that, and how gorgeous that game was back then, like Strive basically repeated that, where
Right.
Street Fighter 5, we talked about 5, and it dropped the ball on a lot of things, so the bar was pretty low, to be
Right.
very candid. But then Strive comes out at the end of the console generation and just blows it out of the water.
Right.
I
That's interesting, because that's actually something I've never thought of, and I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and so you mentioned good timing too, as far as netcode goes, and in that was probably, I credit Strive with kind of birthing the online generation of fighting games and the legitimacy of fighting games, because it was the first mainstream game to come with rollback netcode.
Right. I actually have like a lot to say on that.
Yeah.
Because you're definitely right. But I feel like a huge amount of that credit has to go towards Plus R.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
there was basically, obviously there was this like contingency of people that were working on this mod for Plus R, that allowed it to have netback, incredible rollback netcode, and that was gaining traction. and so much traction that Arxis became aware of it, and they were like, "Wait a minute, you guys, we need you guys to work for us." And I think that, first off, I think that's beautiful for a lot of reasons. Something that a lot of people don't know is that modding games in Japan is illegal. Because it's basically conflated with piracy. So being able to mod games at all is something that is generally frowned upon. This is something that several games faced criticism from the devs. Undernight is a big one where the devs were not, they did not want people modding the game like in any way.
Sure.
So the fact that this was like condoned in a way was incredible, first off. And then once it became widely available, a lot of Steam player player statistics, the amount of people playing the game was, hold on a second. That was BM, by the way. That was BM in that replay. Anyway, it was the numbers were like 3 times as much as like Street Fighter 5 or something like that. Like it was just some incredible number, and it was like, okay, devs, look at this, please, and pay attention. And I feel like Strive was really the first game to be in a position to really benefit from that.
I remember like the promotion for the game too, and when they announced the delay for it before the game even came out, and they were like, "We're gonna we've taken the feedback from the community. We're gonna put rollback into it." But they had already like progressed so far into development that they had to delay the game for it.
Right,
and that's how big of a deal that was, I think.
Yeah. So the first beta for this game was with delay-based netcode. And a lot of people were like, "Are you kidding me?" And it turned into something that a lot of people criticized, because there were a lot of people that were like, "Listen, like you guys, you shouldn't be like entitled about this." And it's like, it's not about that. Like we cannot deal with this. This is not good enough, you know?
Sure.
And honestly, it's very impressive, you know, because they were dealing with that as well as the COVID was happening at the time, and a lot of their dev cycles got they were just shifted in a way that nobody could really foresee. So the fact they were able to make that work at all, to me, is an incredible accomplishment.
I agree. And then because of the release during COVID, when we were all locked in, really, like that became like another social outlet for me personally, because everybody that I, talked to over the years playing fighting games suddenly was playing the same game.
Yeah.
And so it was like a weird, like, reunification over rollback netcode.
Yeah, for real. Oh, sorry, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say the cool thing about the implementation of rollback is, competition is great, like across the different companies, right? Street Fighter, Tekken, like I feel like that was a huge moment for the FGC, because it raised the floor, right? In terms of like what we as players, and even like not even competitive players, like casual players, are getting to the point to where they're playing, they're trying out online at least, and it's just like, if your game doesn't at least have this, like it's getting to the point to where uh, games are getting like review bombed. Like I've seen, what was that one game? Grand Blue. Like, have you looked at the Steam reviews for Grand Blue? Pretty much the majority of the comments are, "Oh, this is a great game, but it has delay-based netcode."
Yeah.
So it's become a huge thing, and it's like, if you want to release a fighting game in or now, then that's got to be a basis of your online play.
Right.
Yeah.
I did want to actually backtrack a little bit.
Sure.
Since we're talking about netcode. So I was getting like very disenfranchised with fighting games at one point, because of kind of the advent of the pandemic, and it was just it didn't really feel like feasible to be able to have this be like a focus when I'm not able to go out to events. And during that time, it would, like, before it got really bad, I had gone to this one anime con. I believe it was Saboten Con, for anyone that is in the area. And it was a lovely event. But I was invited by Michael Spottifor to compete because Samurai Showdown was a big game at the time. I was playing that, and they were having Xrd as a game. And I played in that. I won the Xrd tournament, and there was somebody that I played in that tournament that they were really, really like they wanted to talk about the game a lot. Like they were really into Xrd, but they were not like they didn't have like tournament like experience and stuff. So we talked about a bunch of different stuff within the game. They might still be in the chat. I don't know. RK, MGTG, and they basically eventually they were talking about how they're like, oh, I have this server where we run Xrd net play tournaments, and I wanted to invite you because I think that we got some stronger players and we'd like to have like more people. And I was like, I'm not entering a net play tournament. There's no way I'm not doing that. And eventually he was a little bit insistent, and I was like, you know what, fine, I'll come and play in this thing, and whatever happens, if it goes well, if it doesn't go well, whatever, I'll just play in it. It'll be fun because I hadn't played in a long time at this point because there were no local events.
Sure.
And so I joined, and it was pretty quick. I took care of it pretty quick. But
speed run.
You could any percent. But it was really interesting because there were all these people that were clearly very passionate about fighting games, but did not have that kind of direction to like really get strong at them. And it was really like the more time I spent in there, I felt like reinvigorated to like really try and keep playing games seriously. And after Strive came out, there was kind of like a resurgence within that server of new players trying to learn fighting games for the first time. So in that server now, there's a role for people that like help teach newer players and stuff, a mentor role, and I have that role, and I'm in there teaching people all sorts of stuff about fighting games if they ask for help and stuff like that. So
wow,
that's awesome.
So like basically your second win in the fighting game community was as a mentor or as a teacher then?
Yes. I'm not, so obviously I can't play fighting games as like a job, right? A lot of people can't do, most people can't do that.
Yeah.
And coming to terms with that is like, okay, if I'm not going to be this person that goes out and wins majors and stuff like that, at the very least, maybe I could help somebody be that person. You know what I mean? And that's that's really where I want to be. I want to, there's honestly a lot of like negative energy and like outrage culture within fighting games. And I really want to kind of work against that.
Oh, that's awesome. Like, I mean, that's something we've talked about on the show with different people in terms of like the coaching aspect, right? Like, not necessarily the best players make the best coaches, or even in your case, like the best mentors. Like, it's one of those things. Like, I think I always wondered if there were kind of people in those or groups like in those kind of situations where like they, they really love the game that they're playing, but they haven't unlocked like a more advanced layer in terms of it. Like, they play each other, they understand like, basic stuff of how to punish things and stuff like that. And then like, but they're lacking that like next opening them up of the game, like whether it's frame traps or Oki or stuff like that, you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And I mean, there's also, this is, I don't know, this might be a little bit weird to talk about, but I feel like I had like a very big kind of personality shift within how I like to present myself in the FGC and just in general, because the time that I spent kind of being locked away during COVID was miserable. And I was like a pretty like I guess you could say like kind of abrasive and like cantankerous person in the FGC before COVID, and I kind of came out of it really just wanting to show people, like how beautiful these games are, and how much fun they can be.
Yeah, I can relate to that pretty strongly actually, because like I'll be real too. Like the pandemic did quite the number on me, just due to like personal issues happening and a lot of like rethinking my life, like a lot of questioning of motivations for pretty much everything that I did. And one of those things was fighting games, like why I continued to play these games. And you know, for a while, like with the pandemic killed all locals, and so when we were starting to come back at around like late 2021 or so, which again that was still like a tepid time. We were wearing masks and everything still, and I was trying to keep the Street Fighter 5 scene alive, but by then pretty much everybody had dropped off that had like played like legacy wise, and so it was just a bunch of people that had come up in the online era, who had come up during COVID, and learned how to play during COVID, or were too shy to come out during like before the pandemic, but wanted to try to embrace locals afterwards. And a lot of them were younger folks, and I found myself being like, this is the scene that we have now, and it's, as somebody that's a part of it and as an older person in it, like I have like a responsibility almost to show these people what the game, like you said, how beautiful these games are. And I got so much fulfillment from like, I think you're probably going to get this right away, but like it's, you show someone like Oki or Frame Trap, like what Benny mentioned, or like a technique for easy IADs or something, right?
Yeah.
And then they do it, and when they do it, and and they get happy for, like that they got it, it's like the best feeling ever, because you got to play a part, and like you got to be a part of that learning experience and that journey that you yourself took a decade ago. And I don't know, there's just something really inspiring to that, and that actually gave me a lot to chew on, and steered my path forward in the fighting game community, and that's kind of why I'm still around to this day, I think.
Yeah, I think I was gonna say, I think it's really like commendable of both of you to kind of be in those positions, because it's like, I think of like new people in the fighting game community, right? It's like somebody starting a new job, right? And like you're excited about the job, like whatever your reason is for being excited to the job, and then you run into like that guy that's been there for 10 years and he's like cynical and he hates it and he's like, oh, this job's crap, blah blah blah. This person's blah blah blah. And it's just like you don't want to go into the situation and just have negativity, and you're just like, man, I didn't really want to hear that from somebody, and here I am excited for this. So to like have somebody mentor you and kind of introduce you to this scene, and be a positive influence on you when you get in, like I think that does wonders for a lot of people, because I've definitely seen situations where like the negativity has turned people away, and like whether it's trash talking or like the environment, and people are just like, oh, I'm just not comfortable being in this kind of situation. Like to have somebody that's like kind of, I don't know, people would say like the hand holding would be, I don't know, maybe negative connotation, but it's kind of just introducing them in a more positive light to like you guys said, like kind of like the beauty of fighting games, and like the fun that we have playing these games.
I agree. To the point where like I'd actually call it hand holding, and that's fucking fine, because during the pandemic, like the world didn't really show that they wanted to hold your hand.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It was cold all around.
Yep.
Yeah. So I wanted to take it back in terms of like, because you're a big part of my Street Fighter 4 history and my story. So and I say that not because like I think I played you maybe once in tournament, and that was in the second qualifier for the B League stuff. And in that first one, if I can recall correctly, you ended up getting second to Mocha, right? Because Mocha won the first one, and that was like his coming out party. Uh, so I just remember being like like I wouldn't say supremely confident. Like I was pretty confident about my chances to win that first qualifier, right? And then Dragon Ninja Daniel puts me in losers in my first match on stream. I dropped like everything, and I felt terrible. And I was just like, man, maybe this isn't my day. And I start making a losers run, and eventually it gets stopped by Chiron. And like somebody with a more salty mindset, like I was upset, but could have just left the venue and been like, screw this, whatever, I'm done. But part of me, like, I was watching the people that were playing well, and you were one of them. Mocha was one of them, and it was just like I wanted to be there to like not necessarily congratulate you guys. Like I just wanted to be there at the moment, like whoever was going to end up winning, right? And um, I look at it as like that situation in sports, like when the losing team loses and you see the confetti and it's like focusing on the guys that are losing. Like that was my losing moment. Was sitting on the sidelines while Mocha was presented with winning the B League or winning the qualifier, and then like there was that surprise announcement that like, well, actually we had somebody fall out of the B League, so second place gets to come in too, but we didn't want to say anything and kind of split the pot situation with you and him, and then you got to go in there too, and I was just like, damn it, that could have been me. So like I just remember like that you were part of that situation. I didn't play you that tournament, but then like the next year when they did it again, like I had waited that whole year and I was determined to like not lose to anybody. Like that was my mindset going in. It was like my wedding anniversary that day. I was like, I'm not losing to anybody today. This is my day. And I think I beat you. I beat you on the way like to whatever winning the thing. So like you were like an integral part of like kind of like my salty run back and like my climb into the B League the next year.
That's really cool and not really something that I even like knew about when it happened. I if I remember correctly, I think I had like lunch with you and your wife.
On which day?
Was that before or
It
after
was
you guys played?
it was when I don't remember exactly. I just remember I know for sure we went to Detroit Coney and had some food. I want to say it was after we played, but
Oh, maybe it was that day. I don't know. That one day was a blur when I won.
yeah, yeah. But that's cool. I remember that was another like really inspirational moment for me when they had those like little cards where they had the people on
Yeah.
them, and
Yeah.
they had me with the with the cowboy hat.
Yep.
That picture is outrageous. I actually want to find that. Give me a second.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
So
see if I can pull it up.
yeah, the event we're describing right now was a qualifier event for an event that Abe threw called True Grit, which was like a 5-man round robin, but it was like first to 10 or something crazy
It's
like
first,
that.
first to seven.
First to seven deuces
Yeah.
rules, so sometimes it ended up being first to seven.
But no, well,
Right?
it started. Well, yeah, it started. So they had basically an A league that he designated of I don't know how many players. I want to say it was like 7 total, maybe 8, and it was
Mhm.
just like however many people. They had an open slot, and then that open slot was for the winner of the B League Invitational, which he had. And then the B League was basically set like that was just going to be it, an A and a B League. But there was
Yeah,
enough feedback and crying as he described it for people to want to be part of it. That's where the qualifier was originated from, and that was the original tournament that I was talking about when Show got second place.
yeah.
Uh,
I remember when Abe announced that. I was in the room, I think, when that happened, and Show got so hype. It was awesome.
yeah,
Sorry,
no, I
Benny.
mean,
I know that was at your expense, but still, like
oh
that
no,
was
no,
such
no,
a
no, no,
cool
that's
No.
I
moment.
mean, I could, it's like, some people would look at that negatively, but like I just thought of it, considering where I ended up like a year later. Like if there was no other qualifier in B League after that, yeah, it'd probably just be like a sad story in my timeline. But considering like the arc that I had to go through and I had to hold that for like a whole year, and I was just like, damn, that could have been me.
Yeah, it made everybody better in the end, right? I think.
Yeah, like I just remember, yeah, like when they were, talking to Boca, and then they did the surprise thing, and it's like, yeah, we have a second spot opened up, and so Show's gonna get to play too, and I'm just like, what? I was like, I could have got second place, and I could have still been in this, and I was like, oh! I was so upset at myself for losing that day.
Yeah. It was cowboy themed. That was the big thing. It was True Grit. So
Yeah, True
like,
Grit, yeah, that was the
yeah,
first one, yeah,
and I think that they gave everybody a nickname. Like,
yeah.
and they put out these like promotional card things, and I cannot remember what your nickname was. Show if you do.
Yeah, I think he's looking
Oh,
for the
don't
card.
worry. While you guys have been talking, I was digging this up. Here you go. I'll put it in the chat.
Tight. I'll put it in the stream too. Let me see if I can add this real quick. Here.
Because I was so happy when this happened. I was ecstatic about this.
That's awesome. Yeah, because like Rick Dog had like the old man, I think his was.
Yeah.
That's
There we
Um,
awesome.
go.
yes.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Like, yeah, I wasn't part of that one, but yeah, I had a lot of fun looking at those and like, yeah, I remember seeing the
Um,
cards.
I got last place for the record. At the actual event, I got literal dead last place, and that's fine. Because I was just glad to have been a part of it.
Yeah,
And it was just a really fun event. The idea of being invited to an event is always huge, and I think
yeah,
it's awesome that you took that and you took it all the way to the next one.
yeah. That was my that was my motivation for like a whole year, man.
I
Oh
That
man.
I kind of wanted to bounce back and talk briefly about the positivity and negativity conversation,
Mm,
because I do remember I remember like having to come to terms with negativity in Marvel 3 because of the character that
no.
I played, right? But
mhm.
when Street Fighter 5 came out, that was, and it had some objective flaws to it, but as the game got better, it still, there was still a fair amount of like, the game sucks because it sucked 2 years ago. And
Yeah.
I noticed, like, I had to kind of like learn how to steel myself and combat that negativity during that time period. And I feel like there's a parallel there as far as your way of changing your outlook and trying to find ways to be more positive. And I was curious about like what kind of tools or mechanisms you have in place to combat negativity towards the game that you play, and with the new positive outlook you have.
Um, Now I'll say this. It was something that I was facing quite a bit in Xrd. People were treating Raven as though he was this like insane broken character long after he was not considered even like top five. And
Ooh.
it was
So they
quite
kick you while you're
frustrating.
down, basically.
Yeah, it was like, oh, my character's not even good anymore, and you guys are treating okay, sure. Um, but I think this is something I still do face because you have the people that they just love to say that Strive sucks, and then you
Right.
also have the people that even though they play it, they're convinced that Happy Chaos is just a completely unbeatable character. And honestly, the main way to combat that for me is to honestly just I guess talk to other people that are I guess you could say level-headed. It's good to have kind of like a it's good to have kind of like a support system
Yeah,
where you're able to speak to other people that take the game seriously, or other
yeah,
people that are generally able to honestly people that beat the hell out of me.
yeah,
If I have people that I know like will just stomp me in the game,
yeah.
I'll talk to them and be like, man, like, they could figure this out. They could be in that same position. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah, they probably won't have the same like bombastic view because they're winning, right?
Yeah, because they're
yes.
doing well. Yeah,
And
yeah.
and that's one thing that I think a lot of people miss is that I think there's like a perception of like, okay, you only like this game because you're winning, right?
Mhm.
That's such a common thing. Like, oh, of course you love this game where you're getting a ton of money, $20, and and you're beating up all these people that are bad, right? But I think that having friends and people that you talk to that are also like just better than you or just spend more time with the game, they're more experienced and stuff like that, will if you're actually let me step back a little bit. I always think about what makes a game that I enjoy. And in fighting games, we love the genre, right? Just in general, two people on the screen fighting each other, it's awesome. But what really brings it beyond that for me and makes me want to focus on the game is that if I'm sitting there losing, if I'm getting beat down for hours and hours, am I still having fun? And if the answer to that is yes, then I feel like that is a game that I really, really love.
Yeah. Yep.
And
Because
That's my prime example when it came to Marvel 3. Like I was complete ass at Marvel 3 and I'd
mhm,
go to casual sessions with my friends and I'd get beat, 30, 40 times in a row. And I'm
mhm,
just like, Yeah, I got my one mix up off, maybe 1 out of 10 games, but, at the same time, I'm still having fun. I mean, I'm watching it the majority of the time as, I'm getting my ass kicked, but it's just like, I'm still having fun.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
just like, I still love that game and, and playing it on the level that I'm at.
Hmm.
Does Strive give you that kind of feeling where like you can just have your ass beat for hours and still be okay with the game and still be excited to play it the next day?
Um, Absolutely. So I'll give a little story for this one. He's probably in the chat right now. One of the local players, Ed or Gatterall, we were gonna go to Combo Breaker. Yes, exactly. Whiffy Cat is also Gatterall. For some reason, he has a million Twitch names. But anyway,
So
yeah,
Whiffy Cat in our chat says you win because you like the game and not the other way around.
exactly. And so we were both going to Combo Breaker, and I needed a ride to the airport, but I didn't want to bother my roommate in the morning. So Whiffy Cat had a hotel room that was next to the it was next to the airport. So I just decided to go over there, hang out with him for a while, and then fly out from there in the morning. And I went over there, and we literally played for like 9 hours. We were just grinding, and he plays the same character that I do. We both play Happy Chaos, and I'll say we played probably like, and I probably won like 10% of them or something like that. And I came out of that like so inspired and just happy that I spent all that time playing it and learning and all that sort of thing. Um, and it made me really want to play well in the event, which I'm very happy with my performance at the event, but also just in general to be playing this game more. So yes, I would say that I feel that.
Nice. I remember getting that feeling with Street Fighter 6 too, where like I got destroyed by some top players from California, and what I took away from it was, oh my god, there's another way to play this game and it's awesome looking.
Yeah, yeah.
And like to be like to feel like not it's like that, it's like a shonen anime where it's like to know that there's a level beyond and that you can get there now that you've seen what that looks like, you feel inspired to chase it more, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's actually extremely good way to describe it. I completely agree.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the other beauty of fighting games, right? It's kind of like the kind of self fulfillment, the I guess validation in a way of you seeing yourself improve. Like
Yeah.
I've been having a hard time grasping this game, and really kind of I've been building really slow. Like I did my placement matches, I ended up in silver, so I'm like climbing my way out of there. I've been like sitting in platinum now, and I've been
Nice.
Mhm.
playing John, and I've been playing Old Man River Jeff, and they win 80-90% of the games, but
Yeah.
at the same time, like I'm learning about deficiencies in my game or deficiencies in the setups or the things that I'm doing. Because like the people that I've been playing at the lower levels, they're not blowing me up for stuff. They're like kind of getting me letting me get away with things that I probably shouldn't, and I'm not sure if I can. And then I play these guys, and all of a sudden it's just like, oh, you can jump over that. Oh, you can punish this. And I was just like,
Yeah.
I haven't been getting punished for this for the last 4 hours I've been playing this game. I've been getting away with some BS.
Yeah.
So but at the end of the day, like I'm learning and I'm having a ton of fun still, even though I probably lost 90% of the games to both of those guys combined.
Hmm.
I really like the mentor trajectory show, as far as like you still want to play the games, like, because we frequently have this like divide, I think, on the show. We talk to players and we talk to TOs,
Hmm.
and like there's usually not a lot of crossover between them, and anybody that tries to cross between the two is usually pretty unhappy with their results in both.
Right. No, that's 100% true. And honestly, that's I feel like the hardest thing to really overcome, because I feel like I'm in a position as someone that talks to a lot of people. I talk to you guys, and I have like some history with a lot of people in the area.
Mhm.
It's the onus of like having an event that I'm running or that is around something that I'm trying to do. It's very tempting, but I love playing the game so much I can't do it.
So like to tie back to kind of what Benny was talking about, where like he's you're playing Benny, and then you play against a top player that will punish you for doing certain things, right? Like that is another form of teaching or instruction in a way, right? And if you
Mhm.
can get fulfillment from doing that, and you get to play the game still.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's kind of the best of both worlds, and as
So
well as combating that negativity.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I actually specifically when I was playing Xrd, I had kind of like a teach by example type of like method where I was playing Potemkin against people. I don't want to get like too into the minutia of it, but basically I was playing this character who for people that don't play the game or don't know what I'm talking about, but the things that he does are so huge and like in your face that like when you get hit by it, you're like, oh, I definitely should have not let this happen because I should have, I should have jumped here, not so I don't get grabbed, so
Yep.
I don't have to watch this whole cutscene.
Where he takes it in the sky.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's like that aspect of being able to teach through the gameplay is always what I like the most, because I've never been somebody that spends a ton of time in practice mode.
Yeah. Yeah, that's me, trial by fire. Like I'm thinking,
Mhm.
I might practice some simple combos or conversions and stuff in training mode, but I'm just like, you know what? I might as well just play somebody and see if I even get the opportunity. And if I do, can I make that conversion happen in real time? Because
Yes.
otherwise, like, what's the point of me going into the lab if that's not going to translate to me when I'm actually playing somebody anyway?
I Benny, you bring up a good point too, in that everybody kind of learns differently, and
Mhm.
I was curious, show if like the people that you've been mentoring in the Discord and beyond, like have you found like a methodology that helps you cover multiple styles of learning? Do you shift based on how they learn, or is it more of just like a kind of finding the right personality type for who you take on as a mentee?
So that's actually a really good question, and there's a lot of different aspects to it, of course, because like you were saying earlier, you were talking about like top players are not always the best teachers, and there's a lot of top players who they take on that. Here's my account. I've won this event, this event, this event. Let me
Yeah.
teach you. And that is cool, but not necessarily the best way to go about it. And I've always been kind of critical of that concept because I don't necessarily, honestly, there are a lot of top players that are just not really pleasant people, and you don't really want to sit there and talk to like,
Yep.
but um, so yes, and I feel like there are little ways that you can adjust what you're doing to make it more palatable to the players. Um, I I do a little bit of writing, so write like doing little like write ups for
Oh
people
wow.
is not particularly difficult. Um, but there, so it's between several different things. There's like playing matches, and then every time after I finish a set, I usually do first to 10 against people, and then I'll say to them, would you like advice? Lots of times, or not lots of times, this is actually pretty rare. Somebody will be like, you know what, don't worry about it, I'm salty right now. You're like, they don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But most of the time they'll be like, oh yeah, sure. And then I'll usually try to get some like bullet points of like try to condense information down as much as I can, because if you tell somebody 20 different things, how much are they really going to absorb?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what I try to do is keep it to three different things to take away from it and work on or whatever. So there's the gameplay, there's that aspect afterwards, and then I make a lot of little clips. Just like fire up OBS and then just make like a 5 to 10 second clip explaining different things,
Oh
post it
wow.
up on Streamable, and then provide them with links of different ways to approach different situations.
Mm.
So what happens when you give them the clip and you tell them like, here's something that I think you did wrong, and then they argue with you about it
So
to bring the negativity into it?
yeah, yeah. And so a lot of times there are situations where I'll just be like, okay, I'm not going to talk to you about this right now because it's not a good. We're not going to get anywhere.
Mm.
I can show you through. I could like point out another player that is there that plays the same character, and usually I get a little bit of corroboration where I can get examples from people that actually are playing that same character. They're in that same situation.
Mhm.
Okay.
So
More data points.
generally, huh?
More evidence and data points to support your case.
Generally, yeah, that's so. I always feel like what really becomes difficult about informing people is when they created this like obstacle course of different conditions that they are in that you don't understand, and it's like, listen, I've been doing this for a minute, all right. I understand what you're going through, and I'm trying to make sure that you don't have to go through it anymore, you know. And having other people be able to chime in, there's kind of like a, like, it sounds like it's kind of like a beatdown sort of thing where it's just like everybody's dogpiling or whatever, but that's not, and if they think of it that way, that's when it gets to the, okay, we're not going to talk right now because this is not, there's nothing helpful happening here. And so just in general, being able to consult with other players that I think are really good. There's honestly, a lot of the people that go to the events in Arizona, I consider like extremely strong, and I can consult with them about things on whatever character they play.
Nice. I thought it was interesting you brought up in terms of like the top players and like they list their accomplishments, right? And it's like, that's cool, but that's like stuff you've won. Like if I'm gonna hire you to be an instructor, like what have your students done? You know, oh, I trained so and so, and they placed top 8 at their next major, or they did, you know, they won their next local like 3 weeks later. You know, I want to know the kind of stuff that the knowledge that you've passed on, like how has that been beneficial to your students? Not like, oh yeah, I won combo breaker and I'm top 8 finisher at Evo and blah blah blah. It's like that's cool, but it's just like, how are you going to teach me that?
That is actually incredible that you bring that up, because I've only seen that done with one other thing. I've tried to play a lot of different games competitively, and for a while I played Magic the Gathering competitively, and traveled for events for that as well. I had like a team. You guys know Rick Dog. I used to travel with him as well.
Yeah.
The only place I've seen that done is with Magic the Gathering. There are people that'll have like, hey, I have this program that I'm doing where I'll teach you this amount of time. And this dude that was part of the program, and it shows a picture of this guy holding a giant trophy. And it's like, wait a minute, I might need this service.
I want a trophy like that.
Yeah, it was the student. It was a picture of the student with a trophy from an event that he won after they had gone through that program, and I think that is so inspirational.
Yeah, those are the testimonials you want, right? It's just like, I took this program and check out this trophy I won. Not like that's awesome.
So that example actually has it's a coach, right? You're hiring a coach.
Right.
Show, would you consider yourself a coach or a mentor, or both?
I don't know with fighting games specifically. I don't know how much of a difference there is. There are very few people that go to me for stuff that's like replay analysis, like very specific, like, okay, you need to do this, 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 and this here. So maybe less like a coach, because a lot of the information I like to give is a lot more broad, because I feel like Guilty Gear, especially as a game, has a lot of different decision trees, and I can't just be like, this was the right one that you should have done in a lot of situations.
Yeah.
I see.
Okay. Real quick, I wanted to ask, is there a possibility that I could get a certain video playing on here?
Sure, yeah.
Because there was, when I was at Combo Breaker, I was on stream and I played against Tempest, who he won the event, and I was actually really happy with how it went.
Yeah, go ahead and link it in the chat and I'll pull it up.
Yeah, no problem. It's already timestamped for you.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, yeah. Even better. Okay. Yeah, so this was the most recent combo breaker that happened, like a month ago, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I was really happy because we had Yipes and Ringe on the commentary, two great personalities, and they were not roasting me, so I was very happy. And so yeah, I wanted to plug this because not only, Tenno Media, their production is incredible, but I was also I was inspired after this set. Very, very strong player. obviously he won the event,
Yeah.
and I didn't feel like I was completely overwhelmed.
Yeah,
yeah.
to be able to
Jon,
play and be satisfied with the performance in the match with that big of a crowd behind you and that many people watching on the stream, like,
yeah,
that's awesome.
Jon, your cat is like in front of the camera and it's just
Yes, she
totally
is.
taking up all the screen time.
Yes, she is. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's
Thankfully,
no problem.
thankfully, he has a different camera for the
Okay.
actual stream. That's like our view.
Oh, okay. I didn't know
Yeah.
if that was, all right.
That's okay. They're watching the video.
Oh
Oh,
man.
I was fixing the camera, but so I guess a further question I had was, it's actually lost on me right now. I'm too busy trying to make sure my cat doesn't eat my microphone.
Oh, that's fine. That is a more pressing issue for sure.
Earlier, she jumped on the top of my computer and had her paw on the power button, which will shut down my computer.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I was like, oh no, this is gonna be the worst. So that's why I got up and left mid.
That reminds me of those situations with the freaking NES and other consoles where it's just like, hey, we gotta go, and I'm like busy playing a game, and then my sister will walk up, and she's like holding down the reset button. She's like, we gotta go, and I'm like, what? Oh,
So,
man.
I was thinking too, like, we jumped into a bunch of different topics regarding the pandemic and locals and community and negativity and coaching and whatnot, but we kind of glossed over a lot of your history and Strive. And so this looks like it's a very recent placing, and could we chronicle a little bit of your journey from in Strive and like how you started, what character you played, and all the way up to your dirty happy chaos?
Yeah. So the there was a beta for the game. I believe it was the second beta because I didn't touch the first one. I wasn't really. I don't remember. There was something else going on at the time. I think because those betas just go for a weekend, and it's like if you have any plans on that weekend, you're not going to get to play.
Yeah, I get
and so I played in the second beta, and I really liked Ramlethal. That character. First off, I've always liked the character, but in Xrd, her game plan was like beyond what I was able to comprehend. And her game plan in Xrd is very simplistic, very straightforward, kind of rush down style with these, as I've said before, these very commanding buttons, which I love that sort of thing. So I was playing her, and that was the character I played, and I was actually kind of finding myself at a wall with that character because I felt like the amount of stuff to work on became based a lot around play better, which is like such a difficult like thing to do. Like you get like, dude, why did you lose this match? Oh, I gotta press the button better, and that's hard to deal with. And this character, Happy Chaos, he's got that same kind of vibe as Raven that I love. The gun aesthetic I think is really badass. I play a lot of first person shooters and stuff, so I was like totally taken in by this character's design. And it was funny when he got revealed. One of the members of the community, Rainbow Heavy, he says in the chat, did anyone see how Show is holding up? Did anyone check in on him? Is he all right? But this
so you
character,
knew right away that you were going to play this character.
Basically. As soon as they announced that he was going to be playable, I was like, yeah, that's it. That's 100% it. And I was learning very quickly that what this character would demand gameplay wise is a lot way beyond what I'd ever done in a fighting game before. And so there were a lot of moments. I got a lot of 0-2s in tournaments. A lot of moments where, I just didn't really have the right set of actions in mind to deal with the situation and stuff like that. And just in general, the things that this character expects from you is much more than most characters in the game. And that was actually inspiring because I was like, I'm not going to let that stop me from playing him. You know what I mean? And what we were talking about earlier, you know, you win because you enjoy the game, that sort of thing. My strength with this character is not based on how strong the character is. I just really want to play him, you know,
Sure.
and being able to come to terms with that and just leverage my enjoyment, you know, with this character improving is okay. You need to learn this setup. You need to start doing this in this situation. It's very, very there's tons of decisions to be made. There's a lot of mental stack and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and that actually is a lot easier to work on than you need to play better.
Yeah.
In any given match, I feel like I can like tally up how many situations I've made a mistake and how many situations where I you know, I should have done this better combo, or I should have used my meter in this better way. And I love that because it's much easier to process where to find the improvement as a player.
Yep. I find that to be the case when I pick up technical characters too, where it's like it's more demanding, but there's always an answer.
Yeah.
As opposed to like playing a simplistic character and being like, I got the pants beat off me. I don't really know what else I can do besides, like you said,
Yeah.
play better.
Yeah.
I did remember my question from earlier, and I apologize for jumping around so much here. But this might actually play into this match too. Is when you know when you're doing the mentor work, and you take a particularly bad loss in a tournament somewhere. You know, I figure we've all got those stories where we've taken a big loss.
Yeah.
Does it ever feel like the mentorship got in the way, and that you could have spent the time you spent teaching teaching people, you could have been spent like playing a top player and getting your ass beat?
Never. No.
Really? Okay.
So every time I spend time doing that, it's not only like trying to help someone else improve, but I always try to think of it through the scope of my own play as well. And so if like say if I'm playing somebody that's new to the game, or they're just not they just don't understand certain things. This character specifically, Happy Chaos, if you don't know how to fight him, you just die, and that's all there is to it. And so in those situations, I try to find moments where I can work on things, even when I'm at a huge advantage. You know, I'll do things that I'm not confident doing in like a tournament match, or I'll do things that you know, I'll try to brush up on, like, okay, what is a better meaty to go for in this situation? You know what I mean?
Sure.
So those mentor quotation moments that I'm in. The stream video didn't want to play along. Those moments, I find ways to improve on what I'm doing as well. So I never come to a situation where I feel like it's ever in the way.
Okay. That's good to hear. There are times when I feel that way when I play fighting games, and I'm like, you know, I took a particularly bad loss a couple weeks ago, I think, and it was like, never mind. All that to say is like, I always wonder if I could have optimized my time better. In the same way that you can look at your character and you can look back at a matchup and be like, oh, what if I had done this thing instead? Because I had this other option, right? I frequently wonder that when I'm playing, and I'm like, maybe I should just be getting my ass beat.
Yeah. And you know, there was actually there was a question that I actually expected you to ask, which is different from what you did. I'm glad you did ask that question, because that is something to think on. It's the concept of like, when I take, like, if I take a bad loss, or like I get like crushed in a tournament, if there's ever a moment of like I guess you could say like imposter syndrome, like you feel like maybe you shouldn't really be doing that, maybe I shouldn't be teaching these people because I'm actually pretty bad, type thing.
Sure.
And, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that's a great question, a situation to be in, right?
Yeah. There have been times where I think about that sort of thing, and honestly, with Strive coming out and the speed at which people have become like very proficient at this game, I felt like, can I even keep up with what's going on in this game? You know, can I keep up with the tech that's being found and all this stuff? And it goes away once I'm actually in a position to talk to somebody and try to be helpful towards them, because I feel like when you're thinking about it outside of it happening, you feel like all these other people could be better at it than you. But I feel like once you apply yourself to it and you're in a situation to convey things, there's a certain method that, or there's certain ways that are better than others, I guess you could say. And I personally, I think I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah. Like one thing in terms of teaching too is like, so I'm in a situation where my son, like, he wants to learn Street Fighter 6, and like we played here and there, right? And I wouldn't consider myself a top player by any means in any game that I've played.
Mhm.
But I could see where you would kind of feel like uh that imposter syndrome in terms of like teaching, right? But I don't know. I guess I look at it in terms of like, when it comes to like a kid growing up, right? When it comes to like sports, like your first teacher is typically your dad or like a sibling or something, right? Like they're gonna
Yeah.
teach you the basics of the game, and they'll get you to a certain level. So like I like that's kind of where I see myself with my son. Like I don't know how far he's gonna want to get into this competitive scene, or if he's going to want to play in the tournaments, because he's played here and there in the past. Nowadays he's kind of worried about how he does or how he's going to look or whatever, and I'm just like, well, don't worry about that. Like people lose all the time, but like I kind of just look at myself in the situation where I'm the one that kind of show him the ropes, and I'll get him to a certain point, and then if he decides to take this any further, then maybe I'll look into other options with a more advanced coach at that point, somebody that knows the game or knows things better than I do.
Yeah. Actually, that brings me to another point. There's a player within the. Okay, I actually. Well, I'll talk about that later, because you talked about kind of when you're wrapping up, kind of the shout outs type thing. I'll talk about that later. But there is a player who I was playing against, and he felt like he was reaching kind of a plateau in terms of what he could do with his character. And like I said, I consider all the people that play Strive in Arizona, I feel like they're really, really smart players. So I actually brought him over to talk to another one of my friends that has the same main, and had him kind of talk him through some different stuff. So it's definitely
Hmm.
good to have that kind of, like I said, that like network of people that are just very, very passionate, very strong players.
Yeah. Yeah, that like training group that, like I said, that I work with John and Old Man River and stuff like that. Like, yeah, I get my ass beat all the time, but it's just like, I'm sure if I have somebody that wants to learn Chun, like I've got somebody that'd be like, well, I kind of know some stuff, but it's like if you want to really learn some stuff, like you got to talk to this guy.
Yeah, yeah, it's great to be able to do that for sure.
Yeah,
I can relate to the happy chaos thing with Chun, where it's like if people don't know the matchup, then they just it's kind of a wash at that point, because the character just knowledge checks you to death. And I do frequently wonder, am I actually going to be, am I that good, or like eventually like people are going to figure out the matchup and then I'm just going to fall to the wayside,
Yeah.
But sorry, yeah, just thinking about Happy Chaos and watching this match here got me thinking about that a little bit, because like this character looks pretty dumb, man. Like the doll looks pretty dumb.
Yeah,
It looks
yeah.
really good. But that's actually another way that I found to like ways to combat negativity, particularly if I pick a strong character, is I just kind of I acknowledge it and validate the feedback, and I'm like, yeah, this character is pretty broken. That's awesome, isn't it? And then
Right.
frequently I get told, no, that's not awesome, fuck you. But
Well,
there are times when that diffuses it,
yeah, yeah. So there's kind of something that I thought about, and I was actually thinking on this a lot in the early versions of Guilty Gear Strive, because quick aside, I feel like the game has only improved in terms of balance. I feel like every time they've done new things, they make the character they make sure that they add new things to what every character can do, and then they kind of tone down some of the more degenerate stuff. people will of course say, you know, whatever they've done for Happy Chaos, it wasn't enough, etc. Whatever. I will fully admit the character is still very likely the best character in the game, but the stuff that he was capable of when he first came out was like outright broken. And a question that I think a lot of people should ask is like, okay, when does scrub quoting become a valid complaint? When does it become, okay, listen, this is actually unreasonable. This is not something that a character should be able to do in comparison, you know, relatively to what other characters can do. And Nagoriyuki was making me wonder that. and again, the most recent patch for this game has brought him in line with what I feel what they wanted him to be able to do, but still be, you know, a strong character. But besides the point, I just think that that's an interesting thing to think about, that a lot of people, when you've played a lot, it's just, oh yeah, if you're complaining, like you're just scrub quoting, or like if you're, you know, but when does it become like, okay, this actually could be more reasonable, this is actually, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's really quick. We're really quick to just shut any discussion down. I actually think that ties back all the way back to the beginning of the show in regards to the tier lists and how early it is. But like, having that conversation, I think, is actually pretty healthy as long as people aren't demanding balance changes like out of the gates. You know,
right?
Exactly. Yeah,
cool.
I mean, it's something too in terms of like the top tiers too. It's like you always have this situation where, well, not even just the top tiers, where just people like downplay their characters, right? It's like, well, I think this character is good. Well, they have good tools, but, and it's always like, you know, people always want to downplay their characters in terms of the kind of tools and access stuff that they have, you know, for whatever reason, whether they don't want them to get nerfed or whether they want some kind of validation for their own skill. And it's, you know, it's not just a character, you know, I'm actually good.
Yeah.
Those kind of situations.
We live in patch culture now where
culture.
Like I don't know about you, but when 5, like in between each of the 7 seasons, they release like a patch notes list of the nerfs and buffs. There are times that I'm like, hell yeah, I am a good player. Like they agree with me.
You get
like
your validation. Yeah.
The devs give it to you instead.
No, I know exactly what you mean, and I think you're right. There's just like an aspect of like, okay, is there a possible way to talk about this in a healthy way? Because I never see it happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's on Twitter. I'm kidding.
My god. Yeah, I was gonna bring that up too. Like in terms of like character discussion, like probably Twitter's the worst place. Social media, like I think you need to find either like the I'm not in like a bunch of Discord groups, but like people seem to be more reasonable in those kind of settings, or at least on like a local level.
Mm-hmm.
People are a lot more reasonable in terms of discussion instead of going on Twitter and being like, "Oh man, this is broken." It's like, yeah, and like you said, like there's the one side where it's just like, "Oh man, you're just a scrub. Get better, get good," right? And then there's the other side that people are going to agree with you, and then all of a sudden, like, you know, people are dogpiling somebody else, and I'm like, oh my
god. There's one thing I want to make sure I say this, because this is something I really wanted to say on the stream.
For sure.
Every game there's 2 different versions of that game. There's the one that people are actually playing, and then there's the version that is on social media, and it's insane, because if you say like Xrd, for example, right? If you just took things that you heard on social media for granted, you would think that every tournament for that game has everyone playing Johnny, and that's the character that gets not only wins, but the entire top 8 is all Johnny and Elfelt.
Yep.
And that perception is just not, it's simply not how the game is, you know? And I feel like
tiers become memes basically, and then those memes end up being repeated. And the memes get like toxic culture attached to it, and then anybody that happens to play those characters gets tarred and feathered for it, really.
Right. And I just think like the hardest thing and the most important thing is being able to bring people outside of the social media version and bring them towards the real version. And actually, there was kind of a huge awakening within Guilty Gear Strive. If you don't follow it, you might not know, but there was a big tournament called the Arc Revo Finals, which was something that you had to qualify for. There were only 8 players that qualified for it, and the winner of the event was a sole bad guy player. And it is Soul Bad Guy largely considered one of the weaker characters, or at least like a low mid character.
Mhm.
And the truth is that in Japan they're playing a different game,
Huh.
and they're playing something closer to the real game. And it was funny because there was one Happy Chaos representative at Umisho, and she was defeated first round. It was like an 0-2 situation.
Oh wow. Okay.
And it shook a lot of people's understanding of what the game is. And it's like the people that have been playing the game seriously, they're like, yeah, he's just like Soul Bad Guy, or the person that won Mochi, he's just incredibly good, and he's a strong player. It doesn't matter how strong his character is because he's just really good. But a lot of people were just convinced, yeah, I mean, there's only one Happy Chaos player. They're obviously going to win the tournament. You know what I mean?
I'm sure you know this from your Magic the Gathering days, but like it's like a community meta in a way, right? Where social media influences that meta, and then people like learn the matchups for the top tiers, but they don't learn the matchups for the mid tier characters because they're so influenced by everything going around them, and so the community forms this weird meta, and then you might have an insular community like Japan, having a completely different meta and then countering our meta.
Yeah, and it's really crazy because I'm kind of against the whole like, yeah, Japan's just better type mentality.
Yeah.
But then it's like you see situations like this, you see Evo Japan, and it's just a different game, and it's something that we need to get a hold of that game because that game is crazy.
It's like that. It's like what we talked about earlier. You get shown that there's a brand new world to this game, and there's more to uncover. And for the scientists or for the curious minds out there, that's more than enough to keep going, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I was gonna say like one final thought that I had was in terms of like you talk about like the social media game, and then it kind of just makes me think about, because I have a friend that he's not really into fighting games. Like he'll play, like he knows about some stuff. He'll watch streams and whatnot, and he'll join my stream like when I'm playing and stuff. And like a lot of times he's quick to talk about, man, that looks broken, man, that looks OP. And it's like I find myself kind of like downplaying stuff and kind of talking down, and I'm just like, no, I mean it's okay. Like I'm okay with it. It's and trying to I guess bring him off the cliff or whatever, and just like no, like it's perfectly fine. Like what's going on in the game? It's just it's something I got to learn to deal with.
Right. That's huge. Being able to say, like, of course, you guys have been playing these games for a while, as I have, but I feel like being able to say, like, okay, this is something I need to learn how to deal with is like huge. That's massive because it brings responsibility into your court. And then when you have that responsibility and you figure it out and you counter those things, that is your hard work just playing out right in front of you.
Yep.
You have to. You can't get the all the positive energy from picking yourself back up if you don't fall down first, right?
Yeah.
Take a loss to get the win, and then that win is all the more beautiful, I think.
Right, exactly.
I talked about playing Old Man River, and like he was playing Marisa today, and this is like his day one Marisa, and I'm like, I think that we started out, I won the first game, then he went on like a 10-game win streak, and I have trouble in that matchup, so I'm like learning stuff at the same time, and then I'm adapting to his play style, which is hard to deal with. And I think in the end, I won, I don't know, 12 out of 50 matches. But man, those 12 matches that I won, I was like, there was one where I was like really feeling myself. I was like, man, I am figuring shit out. I was just like, then I'd lose like 5 more. But I was like, hey, I'm grasping some stuff here that I didn't know about.
And it's about whether or not that feeling gets lost in the salt, I think.
Right, exactly. And being able to cast off that salt that's the hard part, but it is not just applicable to fighting games. And I think that that's like something that a lot of people don't understand, is that your mental state and your ability to stay emotionally invested while at the same time being able to accept a bad situation is it applies to a lot more than just what's happening on the screen.
That's a very poignant point to end our show on here.
Yeah, and I just want to say it's show's show.
Oh, there we go. We got the puns.
I knew we wouldn't be able to make it throughout the whole thing without this happening, and that's fine.
That's the show.
There it is. But
Okay.
yeah.
Do you have any shout outs on the way out, show?
I do. So this one is a little self-indulgent, but my Twitch, I stream every weekend. I usually stream every Friday, but it looks like our locals are trying to do Fridays, so I might be streaming on Saturdays. I regularly stream on Saturdays. I have a server for if people want to hang out or watch it. Oh my god, wait a second.
Is that like a Discord server?
Yes, a Discord server. And then there's also
if you'd like, you could send me the link to it, or just put the link in the chat, and I'll throw it in the description for the video.
Cool. So that's my stream link, and then also there's the fighting community that I'm part of. That I was bringing up earlier, where I'm the mentor, is RTVS Fight Zone.
Okay.
It's a massive server. There's tons of people in it, and I mean, I only teach Strive, so if people are into 6, they'd have to look elsewhere. But there are a lot of newer players that are trying to get into fighting games, and I'm really glad that I'm part of that community. And a lot of the people that came to watch are also from that community as well.
Awesome.
Well, cheers. Thanks to everybody in the stream that came to see show here, and thanks for watching. We'll go ahead and close the show out here. You can find us on youtube.com/spiral series, twitch.tv/spiral series, and if you search for on Spotify, if you search for Absolute Guard. I am never gonna get this right. I was totally trying to pull up the script while we were talking, and I couldn't find it, and I'm like, So GG's, and thanks everybody for tuning in. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.